Hello and welcome to the National Security Conversation. In early September, the German government released its first ever policy guidelines for the Indo-Pacific region. The documents begin by stating, and I quote, "With the rise of Asia, the political and economic balance is increasingly shifting towards the Indo-Pacific region. The region is becoming the key to shaping the international order in the 21st century." It further reads, "As an internationally active trading nation and proponent of a rules-based international order, Germany has a great interest in participating in Asia's growth dynamics and in being involved in shaping the Indo-Pacific region, as well as in upholding global norms in regional structures." While discussing the rules-based order in the region, the document says that Germany is prepared to promote the enforcement of rules and norms in the region. The document also states that the federal government will work to strengthen the human rights situation in countries of the Indo-Pacific region and to enforce international human rights standards. China is widely regarded as the country that is not very keen on abiding by global norms and laws when it comes to the Indo-Pacific. So is this document aimed at China? This important document from Berlin also comes at a crucial time in global politics. In 2019, the French government came out with its first strategy document for the Indo-Pacific. In July this year, Germany assumed the presidency of the European Union. And from an Indian point of view, this couldn't have come at a better time, right in the middle of the India-China military standoff on the line of actual control, perhaps sending a message to Beijing. To discuss Germany's policy guidelines for the Indo-Pacific, I have with me Ambassador Walter Lindner, the German ambassador to India. Prior to his appointment in India, he was State Secretary of the Federal Foreign Office in Berlin. Ambassador Lindner, welcome to the National Security Conversation. It's a great pleasure, delighted to have you on the show.
Thank you, HAPPYNON. It's good to be on the show again.
We're going to talk about the German government's new policy guidelines on the Indo-Pacific. What sort of explains the timing and context of these policy guidelines? You know, this actually comes in the wake of the French strategy for Indo-Pacific in 2019. And this also comes 2 months after Berlin, assumes the presidency of the European Union. And gladdening hearts in Delhi, this also comes in the midst of the Sino-Indian standoff on the line of actual control. So what's the big story here, Ambassador?
Yeah, well, I can imagine you like a big story. If you put it together like this, it looks like, okay, this is just right in time. You know, I was foreign secretary before I came, so I had quite an overview what we do in the foreign ministry. And of course, we had a strategy towards Africa, towards Latin America, the Middle East and other things, not so much to the Far East or especially now to the Indo-Pacific. So this was in the making already, but it was sort of building up, let me say. Building up in the sense of the importance of the region has become more obvious and more palpable, more clear for several reasons. Of course, the COVID pandemic has made it clear for all of us how we depend on each other, how we depend on the flow of goods, but also on medicine, and how we are dependent sometimes too much on just one country. So it's good to diversify. Second, of course, the importance of the region is more and more visible. Like you have half of the world's population is around Indo-Pacific. Half of the world population, 4 billion. And then you have, if you take other things like megacities, we have like 35 megacities in the world. Megacities means 10 million and above. And 20 of them are in that region. And then three of the three major world economic powers, like the US, number 1, like China, number 2, Japan, number 3, in brackets, number 4 is Germany, but we're not in the region. So the 3 biggest economic powers are in that region, and 40% of the gross national product of the world economy is produced there. Plus, you have in the area a very young population, and in many parts a very well trained population, youth which is eager to contribute to, let's say, the IT sector and to the artificial intelligence and to the world of tomorrow. And you have lots of global challenges which can't be solved without these powers, and especially India, for example, environmental issues, population growth, scarceness of national resources, all these things. So this all leads to the point that this area, politically and economically, is getting more and more important. So it was clear that we need some kind of a common approach of all our ministries to direct our attention a bit more to this area.
I completely understand the rationale behind the focus, as it were. What I'm trying to get at is basically the timing of it, as it were. Is there a specific reason behind this particular timing, or it has been in the making for a long time? What's your sense?
No, I would say there was not a timing. As I said, now it's the time to do this. It was right that as I said, the importance is there, the political importance and the economical importance there. Of course, Germany is a world power in the sense of trading. So we are trade champions. So we need a kind of a free-flowing circulation of goods around the globe. So this is one of our interests, of course. So to watch this as a bystander from far away would be not enough, I guess. It's very legitimate and very reasonable that we are getting more engaged and involved in all those areas which are important for the circulation of goods of the world. If something is, let's say, a security threat is happening in that particular area, it also affects the welfare and the jobs in our country. So that's why to get more and more, active in these areas is something which was building up, and now we reached this point, of course, and we have reached a moment in history where things are not easy because you have the Chino-American disagreements. Then you have another rising of tensions between China and India. And then we have globally a kind of a unstable atmosphere which is not conducive to peaceful trade, peaceful international agreements and this kind of. So that's why we thought that's another reason to support international multilateralism, cooperation, rule-based behavior and this kind of thing. So it's make your own conclusions why it is at the moment. I tell you, it was building up, but the international surrounding was also calling for more support for global cooperation and multilateralism.
Ambassador, you make it sound clearly very, very benign. So let me sort of try and stir the pot a bit. And doing so, let me bring up the real issue here, which is the elephant in the room, China. The document talks at length about rules and norms in the region, and it is widely understood that China is the country that is not very keen on abiding by global norms and laws when it comes to the Indo-Pacific. So let me put it to you very, very blunt and plainly. Is this document aimed at China?
It is not aimed at China. It is not against any nation. It is a nation. It is a document for multilateral approaches, for diversification. But of course, if we say there should not be the law of the strong or the strength, but it should be the strength of the law, means whoever feels addressed, that he's addressed, or the nation is addressed, because there are some developments where some nations think because they are the powerful and they rule there, they can dictate some international rules. No, you don't do that. So that's why it's come back to the, let's call a spade a spade. China is a competitor in systems. He's a rival in in systems. We have a different political system than the Chinese have. But there are other nations in the world as well which have a different system, authoritarian. We, of course, we are a democracy, and so is India, and we believe in pluralism, in the freedom of press, freedom of expression, freedom of manifestations. If other nations don't do that, well, it's their decision, but we are favoring those who are obeying to international agreements, and that's what it's all about. So that's why we see, how can we strengthen the multilateral approach? Can we approach ASEAN states better, or the Pacific, the RIM Association better, just to support them and give them more strength when they are dealing with issues where you have another power which is trying to set the rules.
Right. You know, someone sitting in Beijing today and reading this document very, very carefully could potentially interpret this as, having a lot of focus, indirect focus on China, as it were. Now, China was Germany's most important trading partner in 2019 with a volume of almost 200 billion euros. Do you think there is going to be any negative impact at all, as far as I know, German relations are concerned, as far as this particular strategy goes?
Yeah, I mean, as I said it before also, I mean, you do trade, and you are trading also with nations which have not the same system as you have. If you only trade with nations which share your own system, democracy, and your own values, then it's a bit difficult. We have our standards, and we have our ethic values. So we are not trading with, let's say, North Korea or something. But as I said, China is a big trading partner of ours. It's not our enemy or something, but it is a competitor and it's a rival in the system. India is also a competitor in economy, but we are not a system competitor. So we have democracy, we have pluralism, we have many values which we share together. Now, of course, we continue to trade with China, but we also expect certain conditions there, which we always bring up when we talk to them. Now, a few days ago, there was supposed to be a direct EU-China summit meeting in Leipzig on Monday. It was postponed because of the coronavirus, so they had just a digital exchange, which means President of the European Union, Michel, von der Leyen, the head of the Commission, and Angela Merkel, President of the European Council, or Council of Europe. And they had a conversation with digital exchange. And of course, they were talking about trade, they were talking about multilateralism, they were talking about how to deal with environmental things. All this, but also the European side brought up human rights, brought up other things. So we are not putting this under the carpet. We are talking about that. And in the press conference, Angela Merkel said, we have talked about many of the things. We didn't share all our opinions on some of these issues. We lived in Germany 40 years in a separation, Cold War. One side, the communist bloc, and the other side, the Western bloc. And we, the Germans, we had a total interest to engage in cooperation, small steps, these kind of things. So that's what will always be the DNA of Germany, to try to bring two sides, if they are at odds, two sides to support that those people get together again. Because confrontation, we have seen in the Cold War area, is not good. And these days, where you have such an amount of atomic and chemical weapons on the planet, right, we can't afford this. And what I didn't say before, the area Indo-Pacific, of course, has huge challenges. I mean, huge opportunities, but also challenges. And one of the challenges that you have at least 3 atomic powers in the area. So it's China, it's India, it's Pakistan, and maybe North Korea. They have a atomic program or something. So
they don't talk to each other, and they don't talk to each other. China,
exactly.
India do not talk about nuclear issues. So it's India, Pakistan. So you're right. Absolutely, it's a very troubled area, as it were.
It's a troubled area, and I think world politics also. You know, if you're in Europe, you see Belarus happens to Navalny and what happens in the Crimea, and then what's happened. You know, there are so many in the Middle East. You have Iraq and you have Iran, and you know there are so many potential conflicts everywhere. So we don't need an extra one in the area here. So that's why the lesser we got in numbers of conflicts, the better on this planet. So that's why I think we should strive all for having peaceful solutions.
Right. Ambassador, you know, while discussing the rules-based order, the document says that Germany is prepared to promote the enforcement of rules and norms in the region. I'm sure this is going to be music to New Delhi's ears, but I'm sort of fascinated by the word here, enforcement. What does enforcement of rules and norms mean in this context?
Well, that we support all those in the area, in the region, which are fighting for the endorsement of rules, which means in different bodies, regional bodies, there are discussions to keep an international rule-based order at place. Now, wherever this is happening, you have us on their side. And be it in different bodies, G7, G20, in the Security Council, where we sit now, and India will sit next year. So wherever there is a discussion, wherever there is something which touches the international order of global multilateralism, we speak up. We have, the Germans and the French, or French and Germans, have brought up this initiative of the alliance of the multilateralists, call it alliance or not alliance, but it is kind of a body which meets frequently, by the way, in 2 weeks again, and India is also a member of that, where they discuss to see where globally is this multilateralism a little bit in danger or could be promoted. And these are so this is a diplomatic way of supporting this. Now, if you hint to another chapter in the document, which says some more security cooperation. So it's not that we would send troops now to enforce legal commitments here. No, but we think it's important.
You're ruling that out. Germany will not send as part of its enforcement of
I mean, we are members of NATO. We are members of international agreements. What we do is we see also that, you know, we are working together in the United Nations peacekeeping missions. We have 15 peacekeeping missions where Germany is working together with India and others. And we are already, you know, in zones where bullets are flying, like in Mali, and or take the piracy at the Horn of Africa together with India, by the way, part of this mission. And now if this piracy is a threat also in the Strait of the Molucca, and in this area, then we will see what we can do to help there. No, so that's why some sort of presence in such a context is imaginable, but it's a speculation. It's not about bringing up German military in the area. No, it is about our participation in these global endeavors to support the United Nations missions and fight against terrorism, fight against piracy and these kind of things.
Right. So you made it very clear that Germany will not be committing troops, perhaps, to enforce rules and norms in the region or to ensure freedom of navigation, but Germany might commit troops to a NATO mission to do exactly the same. Have I got that right?
Yeah, but not in the area. You know, NATO this is all a discussion in Brussels, of course, in the NATO headquarters. But we are with NATO. We are in different parts of the world where we are engaged. But so Afghanistan, take the example. So it's not so far from here. So we have been there for quite a long time and actively fighting there, but also later on training people and training the police and this kind of thing. So we are doing quite a lot in this compact. But so that's why if this is a need and there's an international decision by a multilateral body, the UN or others, then we can decide where to participate in that. There's no discussion, of course, about anything now in the area. I'm just saying we are seeing that we have to also, if there are some discussions of some visits of ships or something, we are open to these things. But I think the most important thing is to show that we are engaged in the area, and this is mostly through our support to multilateralism, but also to projects. If you read the document, you will see on quite a number of pages very concrete steps. There are like 7 or 8 different initiatives, and they all have subtitles. So we will set up now a kind of benchmarks and see how we get through, how we get to the goal that we are helping those in the area which need some support there. So this is something not only for India, but this is in all the, I don't know how many countries, 15, 20 countries in the area.
Sir, how much of a break is this from the past as far as Germany's involvement in the Indo-Pacific region is concerned?
Well, I think, as I said, I think we haven't had yet a strategy for this area yet. We had some more, of course, in Europe, and then outside Africa, global strategy in Latin America, but not in this area. So insofar it's something new, it's something which gives credit to the importance, the growing importance during the last 5-10 years of this area. I think it was ripe to do so. So that's why it's new, but I think it's in time. And as you said rightly, there are other nations in the area who have a strategy, which is like the US or Japan, as far as I know, Australia, and the French, but they are Europeans. So I think in this environment, we are with the French together, those from the European side who have a written down kind of policy paper. We might discuss this also in the European Union and see whether we get to something, a European umbrella to the whole thing, and see whether we have also a European strategy. But this is then up to the people in Brussels to discuss all this and to see whether it gives some extra value.
Right. I mean, you mentioned Brussels, you mentioned France. You didn't take the name of the United States of America even once. In fact, I looked at the document. The document does not mention, correct me if I'm wrong, does not mention the United States of America even once. What I'm basically trying to get at is that where does Germany see the United States in all of this, in this ambitious program that you have laid out in that strategy document? Where do you see Washington, or are we looking at a situation where Berlin is slowly distancing itself from the American views about an international system and structures of international cooperation? So the Trump government, the Trump administration has been basically soft pedaling international cooperation. I know that's a long question.
I mean, to start off with, make no mistake, the Americans are our closest allies. They rescued us from Hitler, they helped us rebuild Germany, and they were the cradle of democracy for us. So for us, the Americans are the closest allies, and we are a NATO partner, no matter who sits in the White House. Right? Now, this document is not aimed against anyone or not in favor of anyone. It is clear that it is supporting a system where you don't have one power who rules, or two powers, or where the whole region has to decide, do we side with this side or do we side with this side, like you had in the Cold War. you were either in favor of Washington or in favor of Moscow. So it was very difficult to be in between. This is a plaidoyer for multilateralism, for different centers, for different, equals among equals. So that's why, of course, the Americans have a lot of interest here, and they have a presence there, and they have a very global outreach. Of course, they are our allies. But that document is not playing power politics. It's a very similar way to the Indian approach, I guess. That you have different centers, you have multipolar world, and it's a complex world. It's not a world between white and black, or let's say dark and light. It's not. It's complex. It's these interdifferences between interconnections in a globalized world, in a digital world and a globalized world. They can't be solved with old categories of power politics. We all have to work together. Now, we should do this in the UN, but the UN Security Council is not really very representative of the reality of today. So G20 is doing a good job, but we have to see that we get some kind of good structure in this way to deal with these challenges of the world. I would earn a Nobel Prize if I have the solution. What kind of structure we need? A reformed Security Council, that would help already. To tackle the challenges which we have. The biggest challenges, apart from the daily issues which we all have in the different countries, it's a perfect storm. It's global warming, it's the lack of natural resources, and it's population growth. These three tendencies leads to a situation where we have in 2100 maybe 12 billion people on this planet, but we have only a planet which is maybe suitable for 10 billion or something. So we will have not enough water, not enough food. We will have the mega cities with 40 million people, and we have air which, as you can see in New Delhi during Christmas time, not breathable, and you have these kind of things. We have to solve them now. If we don't do that, even during COVID, these whole challenges continue. It's not that the global warming is not continuing while we are sitting. It's continuing, and in a few years, Maldives and other countries are in big trouble. Or you have, as you see already in many places, you have hurricanes, typhoons, which are so powerful. On the other side, you have droughts. We have to focus on these things, and there it's just not enough to have a polarized world. We would have to focus more our brain cells and our energy to solve these problems than to fight each other.
But Ambassador, you mentioned India in your sort of answer. What's your sort of how does Germany view India or see India in the Indo-Pacific region, playing a role in the Indo-Pacific region? What has been the nature of your conversation with officials in New Delhi in this regard so far?
You see, we have a lot of common values with the Indian side, and also on the Indian side, no matter who, if it's the Congress or the BJP, same, it doesn't matter who is in Germany and the Chancellor. We have a lot of common values which are based on our respect to Mahatma Gandhi, but also to the way of handling things in a peaceful way, manifestations peaceful, the living together of that many religions, of that many cultures. This is a challenge which was done very well in India. So this is our idea of India, a multifaceted, tolerant, democratic place where you have everyone has an opinion in India, and it's outing his opinions and can do so and can manifest it. So this is values we have quite a number together. We are also together with Brazil and Japan in the Security Council. I mean, in the UN Security Council reform, where we want to have a better Security Council. So we see the shortcomings of this Security Council totally, and so since 10 years or so, we are working together very closely with the Indians and have shared many common meetings where we support each other. Then India is a very important country for us, economically, and we also as well. We have 2,000 German companies in the country. We have 6 Goethe institutions, Max Müller institutions. So there's a lot of sympathy in Germany for India, and India considers us as a very strong partner in Europe. You know, not only because products which are made in Germany, but also the way of no nonsense. You know, we're both no nonsense, and I think it's one of the reasons why our Chancellor and your Prime Minister, they get along well. They, you know, they respect each other of, you know, having serious conversations and no nonsense. Don't beat around the bush. You know.
Right. Ambassador, I was sort of struck by a particular statement in the guidelines. It says the federal government will work to strengthen the human rights situation in countries of the Indo-Pacific region and to enforce international human rights standards. I'm sort of struck by this word, enforcement of human rights. If I may ask, what does that mean? There is an explanation given under that sentence, and that explanation talks about the promotion of human rights. But promotion is not enforcement. So I'm sort of confused what promotion means and what enforcement means in this particular context. And who do you have in mind? Do you have? I know during the recent visit of Foreign Minister Wang Yi, the Foreign Minister of Germany, must reportedly raise the issue of human rights with him. Do you have other countries in mind as it were?
No, I mean, we are not, you know, differentiating. These are values. The European Union is based on values: French Revolution, equality, and also the philosophical basis. It's human rights. It's a respect of human rights, and having lived through the Holocaust and you know, caused the Holocaust in Germany, our country, Germany, with this super black chapter in our history, where the Nazis killed more than 6 million Jews and 20 million Russians and other Poles and other countries. The human rights is it's in our DNA now. We have to, wherever they are in danger, we have to keep a close eye on this. We do this everywhere in the world, and you know us, we are not biased against one country or another country. We try to be objective. Now, when you know, that's why in discussions with politicians where it's necessary, you of course you mention, you raise this topic, and of course with Chinese Foreign Minister when he was in Europe, not only in Germany but in other countries as well, where he met his counterparts, foreign ministers, he was confronted also with some criticism concerning Hong Kong, criticism concerning Tibet, criticism concerning minorities, and which is natural that we do this. Maybe sometimes behind closed doors, because it's maybe not good to do this all the time with a megaphone, but we do this. And also my foreign minister, when he met him, they were also raising this, and expectedly, of course, the Chinese foreign minister made a replique, which he did in other countries as well. Don't interfere into domestic issues. But well, you know, we agree to disagree in this. But as the Chancellor also said 2 days ago, we talk about this, and we have not the same points of view in some of these issues. But we raise them, and I think that's important. Wherever it's necessary, we do that.
Right, Ambassador. There is a, you know, I think my real worry is about the word enforcement. I understand the promotion part of it. I understand the value-based advocacy and foreign policy. But what does enforcement mean? I'm sorry to sort of push you on this, but it would be good to clarify for our viewers.
Well, it means that you try to make this prevail. international institutions, you help in voting processes, and if there's some pressure to be done, like if the situation now in Belarus, how do you enforce this? Maybe you do some sanctions. We will see what we can do there. So if there's a certain limit or a certain level of violation, which means the international community or the European Union in our case has to react, we do. Then we see where we can have some targeted sanctions and this kind of. So there's a whole toolbox of things which you can do to put some pressure, and I think that's the point.
Right. Ambassador, there is a feeling among a lot of analysts in the region that from a geopolitical point of view, Indo-Pacific is really heating up, and that conflict is inevitable in the years to come. And they particularly blame the Chinese behavior in the South China Sea, now perhaps increasingly in the neighborhood of India, as it were. From looking at it from Berlin, what is your sense? There is a superpower rising in the region, and that perhaps will set off a lot of developments which could potentially lead to a certain conflict. Is that a feeling that is shared by decision makers and politicians in Berlin, or at least by you? What's your sense?
Well, I think I would be careful with the sentence conflict, as you quoted some think tankers, quoted conflict or hot conflict is inevitable in the area. I mean, that's what we are paid for as diplomats, to avoid this, So that's why I think, and that's what you saw, the foreign minister with Lavrov and the Chinese foreign minister in Moscow. They were talking. They came up with a five-point paper. I know sometimes it seems for observers, another piece of paper, another here and there, but that's how diplomacy works. That's how we got the wall in Berlin to be teared down. You need to talk. You have to have conversation. You have to make compromises. You talk again, and then there's an up and down movement. But nothing is inevitable. As long as we have good politicians and good people in action, that's what you have to ask them to do. Not to polarize, but to find solutions.
That's it. Excellency Ambassador Lindner, wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me on the show.
HAPPYNON, it was good to see you. Next time we see us, not through digital means, but again in my garden.
I hope to do that. Thank you so much.
All right, HAPPYNON, good to see you.
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.